Um, Hello?
Come on and stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit. I'm horny as fuck, man. I'm a freak, man.
Hello. Michelle Freehugs here. And with the Redacted Regiment Warbond now released, it has brought together a whole plethora of new things, such as new stealth items, new stealth weapons, new stealth gear, and, hell, the whole stealth playstyle as we know it. Or is it entirely new? You see, the stealth playstyle was actually present and actually very good even before this Warbond. Just a lot of players didn't really know about it. While I was doing research for this video, I noticed that a lot of Helldivers 2's creators did not really touch up on a lot of things stealth related. Sure, there's plenty of guides here and there for all sorts of other amazing parts of the game, but one thing I noticed that lacked quite a bit for in-depth details is stealth gameplay, which I believe is actually a very legitimate and very good, and probably one of the best strats in the entire game, as it requires little to no setup and just basic knowledge of the game. So in this guide, you're going to learn what stealth is, the detection basics, patrols and positioning, how you can do silent kills and fast clears, my loadout optimizations of choice, how you can do most objectives in the game with stealth, and when stealth fails and what to do when it does. So sit back, grab a suppressed pistol and a throwing knife, and let's get right into it. So what is stealth in Helldivers 2? Well, it's not your typical stealth game such as Assassin's Creed, or Thief, or any stealth game where you have stealth like walk-in shadows or stealth takedown animations and such. It's more about managing threats and taking the path of least resistance to complete your objective. In my opinion, the goal of stealth should not be so much as never being seen, but more closely to never letting the enemies call for backup. To me, the definition of stealth in Helldivers 2 is controlling when, where, and how the enemies react to you. So now for the basics of how detection works in Helldivers 2. Much like other stealth games, enemies have a sort of like invisible detection bar, where after a period of direct eye contact with you, they will become alerted. The period of time needed to be alert is drastically changed depending on the stance of your Helldiver, such as running, walking, crouched, or prone. Another thing is that contributes to enemies detecting you is sound. As a side note, I will say that Helldivers is a very weird game coding-wise. So a lot of things you would expect that have either no noise profile or a noise profile, obviously like that will alert enemies, but some are just weird and make absolutely no sense. There are genuinely way too many to list in this video, so I encourage you to do your own testing, but as a rule of thumb, applying common sense to the situation will most likely work, such as a shotgun is pretty loud, and a suppressed rifle is pretty quiet. Who would have thought? Anyway, back on topic to the detection and noise. So your generic camp enemies will have 4 main statuses regarding stealth. That being stationary, alert, investigating, and lastly spotted. When the enemy is stationary, they are mostly completely still with maybe a little bit of movement here and there, but this is mainly the enemy kind of like glitching out or some other thing kind of alerting them to a different presence or whatever, but for the most part they will try to remain still. When you shoot near them but don't hit them, they will turn towards your direction. If you miss a few more shots, they will know something is definitely up and enter the investigating state, where they will try to walk towards your location and attempt to find you. Lastly, if you do manage to get seen, you will have the spotted status, where they actively will know where you are and attempt to game end you. So some important notes about these statuses. Again, if you're going by my definition of stealth, you are still technically in the clear as long as you do not let the enemy call in reinforcements. Now, a very big trick to avoid this is abusing line of sight. So enemies in Helldivers 2, for the most part, will attempt to call in reinforcements or not attempt to call in reinforcements unless they have line of sight on the player. Sometimes the map is a little weird, enemies can kind of see you through walls, so that's why some enemies such as the little drone from the illuminate will see you through walls and then call in reinforcements. So to abuse this, you want to be using your crouch and prone stances as much as possible to make the enemies harder for you to see and hear, and you will drastically reduce how much the enemies can react to you, therefore reducing the chance of them calling in their friends should you meet the tragic fate of failing a stealth kill. So again, as long as the enemies have not called in their friends, you're a-okay. Even if a couple of them just slightly see you, As long as you quickly take them out and keep a low profile, chances are the other enemies still don't know where you are. Now on to positioning and patrols. I'll start off with how you should be positioning yourself when you are stealthing. First, I will discuss normal camps and objectives. Then I'll move on to patrols as they are much easier to deal with. So for your typical base, there are generally lots of different paths and nooks and crannies that you can get in to sneak your way into the objective. You typically want to approach an objective and search for a nice entry point that doesn't have too many guards around it. Remember also to use your map to see where enemies are, which makes it even easier to find an optimal entry point. Once you have found a good place to breach in, you want to either sneak past the guards by doing prone and going or crawling by them. As shown here, if you have one of the stealth armors and use the vision reduction as an armor passive, such as the Trailblazer Scout from the base game, or one of the new armors from the Redacted Regiment Warbond, it makes stealth incredibly easy. Or alternatively, you can just, shoot them. Stick to corners and walls and try to stay prone and crouched as much as possible while also using your map to find enemies that may be in the way of your direct objective. You typically want to engage your targets in medium or long range if you can help it to take them out, so it takes a long time for them to spot you. However, some weapons are incredibly good in close quarters, which I will go over here in a bit. As for patrols, this is incredibly easy to deal with. They walk mostly in a straight line, so you can just open your map and see where they are on the map, or just by flat out just looking at them with your eyes while they're walking. Simply stay prone or crawl around them, or just flat out keep running if you're far away enough. They really won't care too much if you have a stealth armor. If an enemy does notice you, however, and starts to investigate the area, crouch or go prone immediately, and then just try to slowly get away. Alternatively, you can also use something like a lure mine, and then get their vision off you so you can continue running. So now on to one of my favorite parts of the video, the loadout choices. So stealth gameplay actually has quite a few options when it comes to being sneaky. Typically with a stealth weapon, you need a weapon that is consistent, quickly takes out enemies with little to no hassle, and just all around feels good to use in moment-to-moment gameplay, for whenever you are not engaging in stealth. Do note though, I will sort of be listing these in my opinion of how good they are for general stealth gameplay versus all factions and all missions, so obviously some weapons will be just a little bit better or worse versus enemies in certain seeds. So as for the primary weapons, I think in my opinion the worst primary suppressed weapon is the M75 SMG. My reasons for stating this is 1, it's an incredibly close range weapon. There are plenty of other weapons that you have in your arsenal that will do close range and medium and long range even, while also being suppressed and also having the ability to be customized. That's not to say that the M75 SMG just in general sucks. You could still use it very easily, as you can see in these clips here, but there are certainly better options. Now for the AR-59 suppressor. So I was thinking about keeping this one at the bottom, but you can customize this weapon and you can adjust for its weaknesses, such as the really bad recoil that this thing has. Now it has slightly less DPS than the SMG, but you're able to use it at medium range, and if you tap fire it, it's not really that bad to take out like chaff enemies, and it has the positive of also being an assault rifle, so you can use it in moment-to-moment gameplay when you're not doing stealth as well. So this one might come as a surprise to a lot of people, but I genuinely think that the M6C SOCOM is one of the best stealth weapons in the entire game, hands down. My reasons being for this is that not only can you one-shot Devastators in the head at medium range with it, you can also take out quite a bit of other just medium targets in general, like bugs and other things, in medium range with one singular shot. And it takes up the secondary slot, so that means that your primary is free for other things like the Eruptor, or the crossbow, or any other things that you're going to be using in your moment-to-moment gameplay or that you just enjoy using outside of stealth. Typically what I do is, if I know I'm going to need to stealth on a mission, and I don't really want to have like a full stealth loadout, I will bring this pistol so I can still stealth around just a little bit and take out enemies silently without alerting a lot of people, and still have the bonuses of having all my other normal primary and other weapon slots. Yeah, I think this pistol is very slept on. Definitely give it a shot if you've been hesitant on it. So now for the best suppressed weapon, hands down, it is the R72 sensor. Not only does this thing have excellent damage, it's basically just a diligence but suppressed. It is an incredible weapon, has great accuracy, has great mags, and allows you to basically take out an entire platoon of enemies while completely stealth. But yeah, this weapon is just the best stealth weapon, hands down. Nothing even comes close. So now moving on to the throwables, and obviously the one in lowest tier is going to be the throwing knife. The throwing knife is just, I'm gonna be blunt with you, it's almost completely useless. There's really no reason to use this thing. It's really fun and super cool if you really want to have fun, but in terms of practicality and actual gameplay, there are much, much better options. So this one isn't really a stealth item, so to say, but it works well with the stealth gameplay, and that's the dynamite. So the dynamite has a programmable timer that you can set to either 5, 15, or 60 seconds. And since you get 3 of these motherfuckers, you can adjust the timers to 60 seconds. Go to the bug holes or go to any of the other places while you're stealth, throw one in, and then quickly go to a different one, throw another one in, and then run to the last one and throw another one in. And by the time the enemies even know that, like, they're about to die or they've been exploded, the first one's going to blow up, and then the second one and the third one, and by the time the third one's blown up, you're already completely out of there. Now, you can do something very similar to this with another item on this list, but this is from the grenade slot, which you don't really have access to with a lot of other things. So you're able to keep any other type of weapon slot, or like a stratagem weapon or a backpack, while also having a timer functioned explosive that allows you to destroy certain objectives. The next up, obviously the lure mine is going to be the best throwable for pretty much every situation. Not only can you throw it in bug holes or illuminate ships or pretty much anything if you can angle it hard enough. You can also throw these things like on top of a mountain or like on top of a structure where the enemies can't reach it, and they'll constantly try to go towards it, making your stealth gameplay even easier. Certain objectives, like for example the rocket, are extremely good whenever you use this thing, as it allows you to basically sit there undeterred and unbothered while the enemies just kind of cluelessly look at this thing. So now for the stratagem weapons, which will not have a particular order in terms of effectiveness because they all are useful in their own select sections of the game. So obviously I think the one that is most important is the warp pack, or sometimes the jetpack if you have different like terrains and like different seeds that are a little weird. But 90% of the time I would pick the warp pack. The warp pack allows you to go through walls. It allows you to go through pretty much anything in the game. It allows you to go slightly up terrain, and it's just a wonderful repositioning and wonderful like means of transportation around the map. Next we have the anti-material rifle. The anti-material rifle is just one of the best weapons to pair with the warp pack as well, as you can quickly take a shot, reposition to a different location, and take another shot on a different enemy from far away. Another fantastic option is the epoch, but some people don't really like the epoch for its ability to self-explode. If you don't really like that, swap to the quasar cannon. The quasar cannon is also a fantastic option. But I personally like the epoch more, as you can quickly fire more shots than you can with the quasar cannon. And lastly, my new favorite, which is the C4 pack. So the C4 pack has all the perks of like the dynamite, but being able to shoot more, or rather throw more, and then be able to detonate them all simultaneously. The only problem is though, it takes your support weapon and your backpack, so you can't have like the warp pack or like an AMR or the quasar cannon or anything like that, but it's still very, very, very good for the stealth gameplay, as you can throw C4 at people's like feet, kind of a little bit away from them, because if you throw it directly on them or directly under them, they will notice. You kind of want to throw it just a little bit away from them, where the splash radius will still hit them. But this is very, very good for, say, a Hulk is sitting right on top of your objective, and so you can kind of sneak around and then throw some C4 near its ass, and then as well as any other enemies that are kind of in the proximity that would also sound alarms, and then you blow it up all at the same time and take them all out. As for the armors that you want to wear for stealth gameplay, obviously I think the best one is probably either the Shadow Paragon or the Sanctioneer. Both of these have the passive, which makes the wearer 50% less noisy while moving, and also reduces the range at which enemies can detect the wearer by 40%. You can also use the Null Cipher, but it's medium, and I feel like if you're going to be doing stealth gameplay, you kind of want to be having light armor anyway. But that's completely up to you. If you do not have the Warbond though, I recommend using either the SC-34 Infiltrator or the SC-30 Trailblazer Scout. Both of these have the Scout armor passive, which allows you to put markers on the map, which will generate scans, which is kind of useful. I don't really care about it too much, but it can help with scouting ahead, of course. But it also reduces the range at which enemies can detect the wearer by 30% instead of 40%. So it's still incredibly useful. And this was the armor that I used throughout most of my Helldivers 2 gameplay. When the game first came out, and stealth was such an invaluable option whenever the enemies were incredibly hard to deal with. So with that all being said, this is the loadout that I usually run on most of my stealth missions. It consists of the R72 sensor again, and then the M6 C SOCOM. And then I usually use the warp pack, as well as like either the AMR or one of the other like things like the Epoch or the Quasar Cannon. Sometimes the C4 whenever I'm feeling a little bit spicy, but most of the time I like to stick with the warp pack just for the mobility. And then sometimes I throw in like an occasional like orbital laser or something like that just to deal with like a big encampment of factories or like, you know, illuminate warp ships and such like that. So now that you know what stealth is, how it works, and what you should be using, now it's time to know when you should be stealthing. So, to be frank, almost every mission you can stealth in some capacity. Missions I would suggest not attempting to stealth are some of the most obvious ones, such as like eradicate missions or the defense missions or, you know, geological survey as well. These can be pretty bad for stealth, as well as such as like flag missions as well. Most missions in the game are very easy to abuse with stealth though, such as launching the rocket or the command bunkers or any objective that doesn't naturally spawn enemies on top of you really. But once you find yourself in a situation where you can do stealth gameplay, your objective is simple. You don't need to kill everything, prioritize the objective, and only take out the targets that you really need to that get in your way. Then, after the objective is complete, do whatever you want. I don't know. I'm not your mother. You can do whatever. So now I'm going to go over some quick little stealth mistakes that I see quite a lot of players make. So I wrote down a little list here of things that I see that most Helldivers, that whenever they're trying to use this new warbond, they kind of just mess up and then alert the entire enemy base. So first off, shooting from bad angles. The amount of people that I see that will not just take the time to sit still, crouch, or prone even, and then line up a good headshot or a weak point shot is quite staggering. Do not be afraid to just take a moment to breathe and then hit your shot so you can actually not alert the entire enemy base. I notice as well that a lot of players tend to leave very important enemies that they should be taking out alive as well. Don't be afraid to take out enemies. It's perfectly okay to, as long as you make sure that there's no one else around and you have a clear shot, such as having good positioning like I mentioned previously. On the flip side, trying to kill too many enemies also is a bad thing. Try to kill just the enemies that you absolutely need to, and the ones that are kind of in the way of the objective. Another one I see is for some reason, a lot of people keep attacking like the patrols that walk by rather than trying to sneak by them. Don't do that. Don't do that. Simply just go around them and you do not have to take every single fight. You do not. It's okay. And for my final points, I'd like to go over why I think stealth is actually a very viable and strong option in Helldivers. So first off, you use less ammo, obviously. Second off, you're not going to be in as much fights, so you're not going to be having the reinforcement spirals that you constantly have with, you know, teammates that don't really know how to play the game. It's also much safer on higher difficulties because the difference between stealthing on like a low level mission and a high level is really not that much different, honestly. Most of the enemies, if you shoot them in the head, they're going to die. You shoot them in the weak point, they're going to die in like 1 or 2 hits, so it's not much difference really. So if you really wanted to, you could practice on lower difficulties and then go up higher difficulties as well later on. If you get really efficient at stealthing as well, it can make missions actually be even faster than usual. Though a lot of the Helldivers community I noticed doesn't really like being fast and efficient, they would rather full clear the entire map, but that's up to you. I personally like doing my missions quickly and efficiently. And lastly, it lets you kind of control the pace of the fight. There's nothing more satisfying in Helldivers, I feel, than being in control of the enemy. You actually feel like a veteran, like Helldiver Commando or something like that, you know? And that's the end of the guide. Again, feel free to experiment. If you find anything else out there, leave it in the comments and let others know. I generally like to share info rather than gatekeep it, so for the sake of not getting a clueless teammate that doesn't know which end his bullets come out of from his gun, share this video with anyone you think that needs a stealth guide or just would like stealth in general. And if you did like this guide, make sure you leave a like and consider subscribing, as I make all sorts of silly, wacky, funny videos and guides. I also have a Discord, which will be linked in the description. And with that being said, yeah. Thank you again for giving me the one thing in life you cannot get back, which is your time. And if you decide to watch my weird ramblings again, I shall see you, I don't know, I didn't really write anything for this part of the script. I guess when I get hit over the head with the new hammer stratagem? I don't know. Anyway, bye!